Hello. For those people watching on YouTube, can you hear me? I have multiple audio, so I'm not sure if this is working properly or not. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. And so this is the third open science workshop that we have organized. And the last two include open code and also open data. And today we're going to talk about open access funding. If this is the first time you're joining, you're interested in learning more, you're welcome to check out the recording. So if you go to the website here, I will send the link in the chat. You can visit later. And if you scroll down, there should be a workshop recording section here. So you're welcome to visit the link to watch the previous sections. So we have in total 5 of those, and 2 already happened in the last couple weeks. And so this next and in the next couple weeks, we're going to have 3 more. And so for today, we going to talk about open access funding, and we have a guest speaker from the UDK libraries, Olivia Ching, and she's a scholarly communication librarian and working at the university libraries, and has been working at the academia libraries for over 10 years. She supports UTK researchers with copyright, open access funding, evaluating journals, and other scholarly publishing needs. Her research interests include scholarly publishing and open access, generative AI and in higher education, and library outreach and marketing. Without further ado, I will hand over the room to Olivia for the open access funding 101. If you have any questions, feel to drop in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of the workshop. Okay. Audio. Oh, sorry. I was talking. I forgot to unmute. I didn't look at the chat, and so let me briefly mention again here. So earlier I covered some of the recording sections. Again, if you're new here, you're welcome to check out the recording from the previous 2 sections, open code and also open data. So scroll down to find workshop recording here. I will send the link in the chat so you can have access to all the recording. Let me see here. And so for today, we're going to talk about open access funding 101, and we have guest speaker Olivia Ching from UTK Libraries. Olivia is the scholarly communication librarian at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville Libraries, and has worked in academic libraries for over 10 years. She supports UTK researchers with copyright, open access funding, evaluating journals, and other scholarly publishing needs. Her research interests include scholarly publishing and open access, generative AI in higher education, and library outreach and marketing. And I'm going to send the link in the chat here so you can have access to the materials. Without further ado, let's welcome Olivia for her presentation on open access funding 101.
Hi everyone, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen now.
So let me stop my recording.
Okay. Can everybody see the screen okay? Great. All right, well, let's get started. As Dr. Wu was saying, I'm Olivia Chen. I'm here from the UTK Libraries, and I'm going to be talking about open access funding today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about open access funding from mostly a United States perspective, although there's also going to be some global opportunities in there as well. And then I'm going to focus in on some specific funding for researchers at UTK to kind of explain how that works here. So if you're not from UT, there will be some parts of this that are talking about specific funds at this institution. However, you might get some ideas for your own institution because there will be parts that are really for everybody as well. So again, my name is Olivia Chen. I'm the Scholarly Communication Librarian here. Just a little about me is I support different researchers with the following things. Open access funding is really one of the big things that we work on here to make sure everybody has a chance to publish their research open access. Also help with copyright for publications. So if UTK researchers have questions about licensing for their open access materials, I can help with that as well as public domain and fair use, and journal evaluation and selection. I really enjoy my job, and I'm excited to talk to y'all more today about one of the main things that people have questions about. So just to make sure we're on the same page with open access, I know we're here for an open science symposium, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but I like to use Peter Suber's definition of open access, which is that it's literature that's digital, online, free of charge, and free of most copyright and licensing restrictions. So that means it is online and it's available for anybody to be able to look at without having to pay any kind of paywall, anything like that. And then open science is really important because it's all about making sure that all those steps in the research process and the scientific process are documented and available for everybody else to be able to see and use and learn from. And I love this quote from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, as well as a few other organizations. They put out a book about open science, and they said that to the extent that science becomes more open and accessible, there should be more rapid and efficient progress in generating reliable knowledge. The more science is used, the more valuable it is. And that's another reason why we're here today, to make sure that our work can be open and reusable and shared with the greater community. So if y'all are researchers, y'all know about the research life cycle. This is a very simplified version of it. But when you're doing your research, there are several steps you go through: planning, developing, disseminating, and preserving that research. Today, when we're talking about open access funding, we're mostly thinking about the dissemination and preservation process, how you actually get your work out there, whether that's being published in a journal, putting your work in an open repository, things like that, how you're preserving that work long term. But when you're also thinking about funding, that is actually as well a big part of the planning process. You want to make sure that you are able to get your work out there in the way that you want without having to worry about paying massive fees that maybe you can't afford. I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Oh, good, great. I see there are some links being posted. If there are any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and I'll try to answer as I go. Or we can talk at the end because there will be time for that too. So we're going to talk a little about some journal distribution models. Publishing in an open access journal or a hybrid journal, and I'm going to talk a little about that. Those are really popular ways to make your work open access since, as we know, in academia, journals are one of those major ways of getting your work out there that is a respected and traditional way. So we have our traditional subscription-based journals, which many of y'all are familiar with. These are the ones that typically have a higher impact factor and are well known in your community. Maybe they've been around for a long time. Perhaps they started as a print journal and then eventually moved to being electronic or having both. They may have page fees or color picture fees that you might have to pay, but in general, they are not charging you to submit your work to them. And then we want them to be able to have a robust peer review process. There are different types of peer review, but ultimately, traditional journals that we respect have a good peer review process. Then we also have open access journals, which are newer in the grand scheme of things, since open access has become really important with the age of the internet and being able to share things more easily. Open access journals are free for readers, so there's no subscription fees for them to access that. However, they may charge things called article processing charges or fees to authors in order for them to publish their work. Some open access journals do this and some don't. There are ones called Diamond Open Access journals that do not charge fees either for readers or for authors. And I really like those if you're looking at a completely free way to get your work out there. But then there are some that do charge those fees. And then we also, again, want to be checking our peer review on those types of journals as well. If a journal does not have a robust peer review process, it's probably not the right journal to submit your work to, regardless of whether it's traditional or open access. And then hybrid journals are just what they sound like. They're a mix of traditional and open access in a way that means, maybe they have some of their work behind a paywall for readers, and then maybe they have an option for authors to make some of their articles open access, but typically they will charge an article processing fee for that. So again, an author might be able to publish for free, but the readers have to pay for the subscription, or the authors have to pay some money for their article to be made open access, so the readers don't have to pay. Either way, there is payment happening somewhere on one side or the other of things. And then also, again, we want that good peer review for a hybrid journal. And yeah, these are just the different types of ways that journals can be distributed. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other, but they all require some of that journal evaluation I was mentioning earlier to make sure that you are submitting your work to the right journal for you. And if you have open access as something that you really want to make your work as, you should be looking at the open access and hybrid journals and figuring out how you might pay fees that are charged, or if you can be able to skip that, get that waived, different methods for doing that. And we're going to be talking a little more about that today. So why are we trying to make our work open access? What are some of the benefits? Because there's definitely some barriers as well that we'll talk about. Well, some of the benefits include if you're here at UTK or at any other R1 land grant university in the US, it should meet like your mission for community outreach, your land grant mission, things of that nature where you're giving back to the community that you are in, whether that's your state, your country, different areas. You want to make sure that open access is helping that your people in your area to be able to see all of the work that you've done, and help them benefit from that. And then, of course, open access also allows your work to be easily viewed, cited, and shared. If it's not behind a paywall, it is a lot easier for a regular person who does not have a university login to be able to see your work. And then it also meets the requirements for public access. If you have federally funded research in the US, typically that research requires you to have your work be publicly available to the people in the US. And so having something open access means that anyone can see it online. So that easily meets that requirement. So I'm going to take a moment here to ask a little about what are some barriers that you might have when you're publishing open access. And I'm going to attempt to do a little poll here. I think it should work. So if y'all don't mind just sharing what you think are a barrier that you've encountered when you're trying to publish open access. And I have some options listed there and in the poll as well. Basically, like, if you're having funding issues, you just can't pay that fee. So maybe your work can't be open access. The finding reputable journals, we talked about that. Some people might be a little nervous about trying to pick the right journal for them. Avoiding predatory publishers is also a thing where we don't want our work to be taken by people that aren't really going to distribute it in the right way, or take money from us that they really shouldn't. All right, so let's see like some of these answers coming in. I also added, of course, sometimes since open access journals may not be part of your promotion and tenure process, it might be harder to publish that way too. And I've left other as an option as well. And I don't know if anyone will choose that, but if anyone does, feel free to put what you think is a barrier to you in the chat if you pick other. It looks like most people, 60% have said funding, and that's why we're here today. That's really the big barrier for me as well. There's just not enough money sometimes. Some of those article processing charges are really, really steep. And then let's see, it looks like 27% said finding reputable OA journals, and then 9% said open access journals aren't part of my promotion and tenure process. So yeah, those are all great answers. Unfortunately, we do know that there are some barriers here. But since we also know about the benefits, we want to look today at some ways we can get around these barriers. So I'm going to end that poll. Thanks for participating. I'll share the results too so y'all can see. That was great. Love some good audience participation. So I'll stop that and just continue on. Go. Okay. So what are some ways that we can make our work open access? Sorry, this poll just doesn't want to go away. There it goes. Okay. So one way that I mentioned is publishing in Diamond Open Access journals. As I mentioned earlier, Diamond Open Access means that there is not a charge for readers to read the articles in the journal. There's also no charge for authors to publish their work in the journal. These are really great if you can find them in your field. I'm in the library and information sciences field myself when I'm publishing, and I'm lucky that there are a fair amount of Diamond Open Access journals in my field. However, I know that is a lot of times harder in the sciences or other places. But if you are able to find those, they are very useful in order to keep those fees low and not have to pay them. But you can also look for article process charge funding for open access journals. And there's several different places you can look for these things, regardless of where you're at. So you can start with checking with your institution, your department, and your library. These are where I would go first, no matter where you are at, because they may have funding for you that's already set aside and ready to go. Again, it could be your department, and you might want to check with your department chair or colleagues that you trust to talk about all of this. It could be that your library has set aside fees or is working with another institution on campus to set aside that funding, not fees, sorry, that you can use. And then also sometimes your institution as a whole has some options for you. So always check there first and see what's available to you. And if that doesn't work, there are several other options as well. There's federal and state grants if you're in the US that you might be able to use. As we may know, sometimes federal funding right now can be a little tricky. So I would definitely read all of those different options very carefully if you are applying for federal funding to make sure that your work will be accepted and just follow whatever it says and continue applying as needed. There also may be some state grants that you can look at. So definitely check with your government websites wherever you're at. Also, oftentimes too, there can be some discounts with the actual publisher of a journal itself. Sometimes your institution or your library can work with a publisher in order to get some fees waived. For example, here at UTK, we have a 10% discount on article processing charges with Sage, the publisher. So it doesn't hurt to check with that. And again, you can either go directly to the publisher yourself and ask about discounts, fee waivers, things of that nature, or you can check with your institution to see if there might be an agreement with them. Some publishers as well offer discounts to underserved areas of the country, maybe like the global south or just different areas that they really want to hear more from in their research. So that also is a great place to check. Of course, there's also philanthropic organizations too that may have some funds for you in order to do your work. A lot of that just depends on the topic and nature of your work and the kind of impact that it will have. But it doesn't hurt to check there as well. Lastly, you can easily deposit your work in open repositories that will not charge you anything. For example, we have Zenodo, the Open Science Framework, Archive, other areas, and I think there's going to be another workshop that talks a little more about them. But open repositories are a great way to get your work out there easily. You can submit a preprint. If your work is already published, there might be a version that your publisher allows you to submit as well. Get your data out there in different areas. So yeah, these are some great ways to start looking to get your work out there as open access. So I've got a few examples here to kind of go off of what we've been talking about. For example, the Invest in Open Infrastructure Fund for network adoption is a recent fund that Invest in Open Infrastructure has put out there, and they're really looking for groups, community organizations, researchers who are working together, and they're looking to give some funding to make their work open access. And they're particularly focusing on Africa, Latin America, and North America. So that is one option where you could look if you have a group and you are looking to get funding. You'd be welcome to go there and just check it out, see what the fund requires, and apply. That fund applications are due by April this year. So if you were looking for that, you would probably need to hurry. I don't remember the exact date of it, but since April is literally tomorrow, that would be something you'd have to have a quick turnaround for. However, if you look more on that website, there are other options too. Let's see. Oh, perfect. And thank you for Dr. Wu for putting that in the chat. And then there's also Spark has a funds and action spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet will actually show you all these different universities that already have open access funds available to you. You can check to see if your institution is on the list. I'll actually click here and hopefully it could show you. Hopefully y'all can see the spreadsheet. Um, you can actually go down, it's through alphabetical order of all the different institutions, and you can see who is eligible for these funds, what is eligible, and what does reimbursement look like. A lot of the times, you or your department will actually be paying a fee for open access and then being reimbursed by your institution. So it explains that for a lot of different institutions. Now, I would say I don't know how regularly updated this spreadsheet is. So I would recommend if you see your university on there to go directly to, for example, the Cornell University Library, go directly to their website and just double check or speak with somebody from that area and talk to them. But that would be a good place to look. Again, thank you for sharing that link. This is a great starting point to just see like what your institution is up to. I'm going to go back over here. And last but not least, Springer Nature does have a funding for open access articles list. And this list goes over funding sources by country. So you can look and see which country you're in and see different institutions, organizations, areas that do have open access funding. I'm going to click here as well. I think I can hopefully put that in the chat too. Perfect. Okay. So if you do want to look here, again, if you scroll down and you look, you can literally go by your country and see what is available to you. So if I click here on the USA, it'll show some different philanthropic organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as different universities. If you scroll down, the institutions list shows all of that. And then you can click the link to see more about their policies and their funding information. So yeah, again, I don't know how often that is updated. I hope it's current, but I would definitely double check everywhere, go to the website itself of that source and see what they have available for you. So now I'm going to talk a little more about if you are at UTK, how can you make your work open access? What do we have available for you here? We do have several methods in order to make your work open access, whether it's an article, a monograph or book, and also for a variety of formats like your data, maybe like some of your pre-published work, things like that. We have several different funds here, and I'm going to go through how they work. And again, if you are not at UTK, this is a great time to sort of know what is out there and hopefully encourage you to check your own institution to see if you have anything similar to this. Hopefully, too, this will provide you with some language that you can use to sort of know what these things are called, how we refer to them. It could get confusing with the words open access, open science, open data, open publishing. There is a lot of different things with the word open. So hopefully this will help as well when you're looking for that funding. So I'm going to talk about our funding that we have for articles here at UTK. So our first one and our most popular one is the Open Publishing Support Fund. And this is a fund that is for fully open access journal articles. So unfortunately, not hybrid journals. It is really just for those fully open access journals. And it can fund up to $1,800 per article. So researchers can apply once per year, and they can see if they are able to get that funding. It is really up to how much is left in the fund. So around this time of year, the fund is typically dwindling because we've already had researchers come in the fall and apply and receive that funding. So I recommend if you're at UT, apply early as much as you can within that fiscal year so that you can get this fund. And then the application does have to be submitted by a UTK graduate student, faculty, or staff member. I'll just click this link to sort of show what this looks like. So this is the webpage for the Open Publishing Support Fund. It tells you a little more about the publication requirements. Your manuscript does need to already be accepted by a journal in order to apply. And your application does have to be submitted within 3 months of the date on the publisher invoice. That's something we check when we're looking through the applications. And it does need to be a fully open access journal. And you can easily find those in the directory of open access journals. It's a very great resource that it shows fully open access journals. You could also look for Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association and see if the journal that you have has been published by a member of that association. That's always a good sign of a journal quality. And you can also look in the journal citations reports database to see if it is fully open or not. And then it explains a little more. Um, it is actually limited to two awards per research lab per year. I think I said one earlier, so my apologies. Two per year. And then also, again, graduate students can use this fund, which is really great. And I know several that have really benefited from being able to use this. And it is again only up to $1,800. So sometimes if you have you have a fee that is more than that, this will only cover some of it. However, you can also talk to your department or look for other funding. If you're if you're at UTK, we do have OREAD and they have several funds that are available. So I would also look there if you're looking for extra funding if this doesn't fully cover that article processing charge. So that's one example of a fund. And again, this is our most popular fund here at UTK. People love to use it for their articles, and it's pretty easy to apply. As I mentioned earlier, we also have several open publishing discounts at UTK. And these are just different fee waivers or discounts that we have with several different publishers. For example, some of the publishers we have these discounts with are the Royal Society, PureJ, Microbiology Society, Sage, Taylor and Francis, Cambridge University Press, and there's a lot more. I'm going to click here to show the web page. Um, so again, if you happen to Google UTK open publishing discounts, UTK open access funding, any of these web pages should pop up and be able to show you all of these different wonderful funds that you can use. And then if you look at these drop-down menus, you can actually see for each publisher what that discount is. So again, if you're publishing with Sage, we have a 10% discount with them off of your article processing charge. And then it gives you some instructions of what to do in that submission process. So for example, you have to select University of Tennessee as the affiliated institution when you're submitting your article to them. And that way they know who you are and that you qualify for the discount. And that's very important to do for most of these very early on in the process so that you don't run into them trying to charge you later. But if you do need any help with that, and again, if you're a researcher here at UTK, you are welcome to reach out to me or people in your department, and eventually we will get you to the right place and we can help you do that so you don't get charged later on for something that you're not responsible for. And then again, like if you're working with Springer Open, they're charging you an article processing charge. We have 15% discount with them, and it explains more about how to actually apply that discount, how to show that you are a UTK person so that you can get it. If you're at another institution, there's likely several similar things for you as well. So again, I would just check with your library or whoever is handling those open access agreements, open publishing discounts. Sometimes they're called read and publish agreements. There's a lot of different terms for these, but regardless, just reach out and I'm sure someone will be able to help you if these are available to you. So now I'm going to talk about, we do have a fund for monographs at UTK. This is a new fund and it was just actually established this past year. And we just awarded our first person to be able to use this fund. It's very exciting. So this is for single author monographs, and the baseline funding is $15,000. I don't know if you've tried to publish an open access book, but sometimes those book processing charges can be upwards of $12,000 to $20,000. So 15,000 kind of falls right in the middle of that. And this last person that we helped fund, the 15,000 was able to cover their entire book processing charge. So I was really excited about that, and I am hopeful for this fund moving forward that it will be able to really help get some more open monographs out there. This application can only be submitted by a UTK faculty member. So unfortunately, graduate students are not eligible for this, but UTK faculty can apply. And the application for the Open Monograph Support Fund is a little more complicated than the Open Article Support Fund. Um, Basically, what you have to do if you're applying to this is submit all the information about your book, who's publishing it, all of that good stuff, as well as the invoice from the publisher. But there is also an impact statement that is required. And essentially, that's just detailing how is this monograph really going to support the work in your field and help your community in the field. It's really pretty easy, I think. Really just why is this relevant and how is it going to help us? Um, and it can be up to 500 words. And so again, I feel like it could be a lot harder. So it's not too hard to apply. You just need to kind of prepare, again, your basic information as well as why this monograph is important. And then the other publication requirements are here, as well as some of the limitations. And then you apply via InfoReady. If you've been on there before, there's several different applications on there for different funds. I'll just click here to show what it looks like. So this is an example, and I can see the admin side of things. So it would look a little different for you if you were logging in here, but essentially it tells the details of the fund, the description, and then how to apply, and you're able to submit different documents. Again, it's not quite showing it for me since I am an admin, but over here, typically there is a way to submit your documents to the application. So that's how that works. And then I'm also going to talk about open access for just a variety of different formats. And we're going to start with talking about data. So being an open science, many of you are probably familiar with Dryad. It's an open data repository. It also has the availability for you to use an API to look through and download a lot of different data. So I really recommend it if you're doing a lot with that sort of thing. And we do have a fund at UTK that gives you up to $250 to deposit a data set in Dryad, and it is available to UTK faculty and graduate students. All you need to do is have an ORCID identifier because that connects your work in Dryad with the rest of your body of work. And then priority is also given to unfunded research. So if you don't have any other funds or help with that, the priority is given to folks that don't have those with this fund. And I'll go ahead and show a little bit more about what this looks like. Again, thank you to Dr. Wu for dropping a lot of these in the chat as we go. Um, so it really has the ready to apply, click here button right there, front and center, ready to go. But if you did want to know more, it explains who's eligible, funding amount, availability, all the different things you want to know, as well as a step-by-step process of what it looks like, which I love that. Takes all the mystery out of it. And so, yeah, if you're able to apply, you just click and there's a short form to fill out. And then you will be notified if you are able to have that $250 to deposit your data in Dryad. And lastly, I did want to also touch on something that I think is very useful, which is Trace. This is our UTK institutional repository or digital repository, and it is a free way for authors to put their work out into the world and show their research. It is also completely free for readers to view it, download the work, share it. It's just a really great way to get that work out there. If you are at an institution, your institution probably has something like this as well. Typically, they're run by libraries, although some might be run by another group at your university. But I would definitely check it out if you're able. If anything, just for your own research to be able to find different documents, or you can upload your own. And so Trace holds different things such as preprints. We also currently have theses and dissertations in Trace, as well as reports, capstones, working papers, really just all manner of things. There's presentation slides in there as well. And again, it's free to use and access, and it also even provides alt metrics for you. So if you upload your work into Trace, you can actually see how many people have downloaded it and viewed it. Trace will actually send you update emails periodically just to let you know how your work is doing and the impact that it's having, which I think is really cool. And then again, documents into Trace can be submitted by UTK faculty, staff, and students. You just want to be able to check your publishing agreements that you have before submitting. So if you published an article in a journal and you want to put it into an institutional repository like Trace, you need to make sure that you have the copyright and licensing available to do that. Typically, what will happen is when you're publishing with a journal, they'll have that publishing agreement that they want you to sign, and it typically will give them the licensing to put your work online, preserve it, perhaps have some marketing around it, share it out with their newsletter, things of that nature. But hopefully, that journal will also have a little clause in there that lets you be able to take either the preprint of that work, maybe the published version, depending on the actual journal, but some version of the work and be able to put it into an institutional repository. And if you're not sure about that, what you can do is go back and check what you've signed. You can check with that journal. There's also a wonderful thing called the Open Policy Finder, which is a website online that you can use to check a journal's policies for this type of thing. And in here in a minute, I will be able to share that with y'all and we'll take a look at it. But it is really great to be able to know what can you actually do with your work once you've published it in a journal. And I'm going to click the link to Trace here. Let's see, and it is in the chat, which is amazing. And so this is what Trace looks like. Again, if you're at another institution, you probably have something similar. Currently, Trace is hosted by the Digital Commons, although it will soon be moving to a new host. But if you're an institution that currently has a Digital Commons repository, it will look very similar to this. There is a wonderful map here that can show in real time downloads happening. There's just one right there. It drops a little pin to show where in the world somebody is downloading work from Trace. And it also shows you what is being downloaded and read, which is really cool. It really shows, again, the impact globally of the research that is here. And these people are able to read and download these things because, again, it is freely available to them. This little wheel also shows the work in different disciplines that we have in Trace. You can just scroll here to see, for example, physical science and mathematics. There's 2,356 works across 118 disciplines, which is amazing. You can just kind of explore this here if you're ever interested. And then again, when you're ready to submit to Trace, if you feel like this is something you want to do and you know that you have the copyright to your work and you're able to do that, what you will do is go to whichever collection you are part of. It shows a list here, conferences at UT. Uh, there's different interdisciplinary, different collections, things like that. For me, since I'm in the university libraries, I would click there. And I would click peer-reviewed publications as a faculty person to submit. And then you can see different examples of what people have submitted in the past. And then you would simply click submit your work and it would take you to the submission agreement page where you simply say you have the copyright that is needed to submit your work to Trace. You have that publishing agreement from your journal that says, yes, repositories are good to go. You're able to do that. And then, yeah, you go through that and upload your PDF and then it goes into Trace for people to read and view. I also just wanted to touch on different open services we do have here at the UTK libraries while I have y'all all here. This first part with open access funding, those are all the funds that I talked about today, including the discounts. Those are all ways that you can make your work open access with funds that we have available to you. But we also do have consultation and informational services where if you need things like copyright support, for example, if you're not sure what you have, the availability and accessibility to do with your work, and you're not sure what you've signed to a publisher or not, that's something we can help you with, as well as resources for digital scholarship, open educational resources if you're interested in using those in your classroom, general open publishing guidance if you're working on, again, those publishing agreements and you're not sure what sort of author rights that you want, things of that nature, we can help you with that. We also have someone here that really helps you understand your research impact and is able to look at your citations and your research profiles and really help you show the impact that your work has done, which is very useful, especially for promotion and tenure. So we have those services as well. And then lastly, we do have open infrastructure such as Trace or Open Repository. We also have what's called vol journals, which are fully open access journals that are currently hosted within Trace that several of our amazing faculty actually run. So if you're ever interested in making your own journal and you're a UTK researcher, let us know because we can set up a consultation with you and help you do that. And then we also have, again, data preservation and sharing help. If you're working on a data management plan, if you're new to working with data, you have questions about how all of that works, we have some librarians here that can help you with that. And these are a few resources I also wanted to share, and I'll quickly just click through them and also add these to the chat. We do have an open science webpage that can kind of introduce you to different concepts in open science if you're not as familiar, as well as help you find different areas to deposit your work. So if I scroll down here, there is an open repositories and platforms section. We were just talking about those where there's a lot of different options you can have to put your work out there, as well as some open coding and open source options. I know Dr. Wu talked about that in a previous workshop, and we'll continue discussing that throughout the symposium. But these are all just different options that you can take a look at when you are working within open science. Great, Dr. We already got the link. And then there's also an open access funding guide, and I'll definitely put that in there, the chat right away. This guide goes over all the different funds I mentioned today. So if you forgot any of this, want to go back and see what all is going on with the funding here, this guide has all of them listed, as well as the contact information for teams that will help you with these funds if you have any questions. And lastly, we have the Open Policy Finder. This used to be called Sherpa Romeo. If you're familiar with that, you've been in the research world a while. It recently changed its name to Open Policy Finder. And this allows you to check your journal agreements and see what you are able to do with the work you've published in that journal. You can see if you're in the UK, there's open access compliance and traditional agreement lookups as well. It explains a little more about, if you used to use Sherpa Romeo, it explains you can just search Open Policy Finder, different tools that it has, which is amazing. And again, it's just a great resource to double check and see what your journal allows you to do once you've published there. So in conclusion, I think we've really talked a lot about why making your work open access is important and how it benefits you. We've also talked some about the barriers, and I really like this open science effort and benefit graphic that came from the Open Economics Guide. Um, it believes that, the benefits do outweigh the efforts, and I believe that too. There are a lot of different ways that getting your work open access out there is really important with that visibility and impact, higher quality of your research. If more research is able to be viewed and read, more research can be built upon and can really advance your work as well as the work of your field. And then also just having more efficient research and avoiding duplications is really great, because if something's behind a paywall, we don't always know what has really been done. And so we want to try to avoid that, and open science really helps with that. Of course, we can't forget, though, that there is a lot of effort involved. There are costs a lot of the time to making your work open access. There's those article processing charges. But as we've talked about today, there are options for you to get funding for those things. Whether you're looking at, again, your own institution, your library, or a philanthropic organization, a federal or state fund, take a look, because you never know what is out there that might be able to help you. So thank you so much for having me here today. I've really loved being here and talking to all of you. I really love the poll results, so thank you for participating in that. I do have my contact information here on the screen, my email, as well as if you're at UT, we have open access funding questions can go to the emails listed there, as well as if you have questions about Trace, we have a group email for that too. And the people there will be able to help you with whatever you are asking. And again, if all else fails, just email me and I will get you to the right people and the right support if you have any questions about anything I've talked about today. I do have a form where if you either scan the QR code, or I can give you the form link in the chat. You do not have to fill this out, but if you want to, this would just give me some feedback on what you learned today and what you're planning to do with your open access work in the future. So thank you all so much again. I'm going to leave that up. And if there's any questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or you can put them in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much, Olivia, for the great, very informative presentation. So it covers a variety of resources that here UTK libraries provide, from publishing to data archiving, and also all kinds of other support that here we provide, but also provide a lot of resources that even if you're non-UTK users, you might also want to explore some of those links that we share. They can help you learn more about open science, open publishing, and also data archiving. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself on Zoom and you can ask questions. While we're waiting for the audience to ask, I have a question about the open access funds for articles. So what kind of the journal, for example, the timeline for review, and also how does it work? Do the applicants get the invoice? Do the university pay the invoice directly, or do the applicant pay the invoice and then get reimbursement from the library?
Yeah, that is a great question. So typically what will happen with that is that the applicant should talk with their department about paying that invoice, and then they will work with, we have some amazing people in our library, in our business office, and they will work directly with them in order to get that invoice paid and reimbursed. So again, the applicant should just reach out to their department, let them know about the invoice, let them know that they've been accepted by the fund. So essentially they'll apply, and then once they receive notification through email that they've been accepted with the fund, then they will talk to their department about the invoice, start getting that funded, and then seek reimbursement from the library and the business office. And so once you have been accepted to that fund, we'll be in touch with you throughout the whole way, making sure you know what the steps are.
Awesome, thank you. This is very helpful. I think, I mean, as a graduate student, sometimes it's very challenging if your advisor or doesn't have the project to cover some of those open access publication the fees. And I think now some of the journal even like go on open access, so you cannot even like publish in the traditional way. They will charge you whatever as long as you publish in that journal. So it's great to have at least some of these resources that can cover some of those funds. The other question I have is like, so when it's accepted, for example, the application, how do the applicants acknowledge the support from the library? Do we put an acknowledgement in the article, or where do we like acknowledge the support?
That is a great question. I'm not sure what people have done in the past. I think really typically what they would do is kind of like you said, maybe have an acknowledgement of the funding you received at the end of your article. But I think it would kind of depend on the publisher too and what they want you to do. Some of them have those acknowledgements publicly available for everyone to see, some of them don't. So yeah, I think I would just check with the publisher on that and see what their process is for putting those funding acknowledgements in. But yes, typically I think it would be kind of toward the end of the article in some way.
Yeah, because when it's accepted, sometimes the article is already sent to the publisher accepted. So sometimes
Right.
it's like difficult to make changes, additional changes. So I was thinking, like, because the requirement is usually applications that you need to be accepted. But I was wondering if this can be a little bit more flexible. Sometimes like minor revision, the applicant might expect the article might be accepted. So when you submit the final proof, that it might be okay to maybe to add like acknowledge the support from the library that for some of the open access funds for that would be great.
Definitely, yeah. And I think too, like if you're working with a good publisher, they will hopefully allow you to make those changes or at the very least kind of add a little note in at the bottom if they need to. But I will say too, the library is not going to come after you if you don't acknowledge us.
Yes.
So it's okay. I will also say thanks to OREAD, the Office of Research, Economic and Innovation Development. They also help fund a lot of these open access funds too. And as far as I know, they're not going to come after you either, but they would also want to be, if you're putting the acknowledgements in, it would be nice to acknowledge them as well.
Yeah,
We partner
certainly.
with
I
them
mean,
on
it's
a
great
lot of
support
those.
for students. So it's great to be
Definitely.
able to actually have some acknowledgement. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Also, anyone from YouTube? Let me see. There's question earlier on YouTube. I already answered it about some of the but that one's more about like open source software licensing, like MIT license and GNU licenses, and I think the question about like what what kind of data or piece of software should have those licenses. That one I think we cover some of those in the open code section, but um, it's up to the let me send the link. There's a great comparison. This is more about the open source software, not about open access articles, but there's a great comparison of different software licenses. The link you can check that in the Zoom chat that I sent just a couple seconds ago about which one should you choose. And the other thing I want to mention is that for those of you, either the students or faculty that you want to publish, but you don't have the worst case, you don't have the funds. For example, the open support fund already runs out, and then you don't have other resources. You might consider maybe some other journals that open access, but don't charge a processing fee. And so for me, I publish some of those articles in the open journal, open source software, and so those doesn't have an impact, okay, and you only need like 1 to 2 pages. But sometimes if you spend a lot of time on developing your open source software, and it's really good, and also it's a lot of people can build on top of those, you might want to consider just publish some of those like as open access. And it only takes you a couple hours just to, you still need to go through the review, but because you spend a lot of time on the software, and you never know. I mean, right now, some of my most cited articles are actually published in the journal open source software. It's only 1 page, and you get hundreds of citations because a lot of researchers or students they find it really useful. Let me see if I can find. I mean, GE map JOS. Oops. Let me send the link in the chat here. And actually, it's like only published I think a couple years ago, and this one get like 200 to 300 citations. It's gets a lot more citation than my traditional article that I publish in traditional journal or other open text journal. So it's like you can certainly consider some of those as your publication outlets. And if you spend more time on the software development, less time on the publication, because it's not like a traditional publication. So those are also some of the good ways that you can get. And it's particularly, I mean, low barrier for students, because if you're already writing code and all need just to make sure that you have good documentation and everything, and just write a short article introducing your software, and other people can build on top of those. Actually, to me, you can also use that for your, for example, tenure promotion. Right? It's one of article. You have citations, you have impacts, and a lot of people will build on top of your software. You can also showcase your repository on GitHub, and you can, if you can showcase, for example, how many people are utilizing your project, that can also be showcasing your impact. Let me show you here. Let me share my screen briefly. Yeah, we have a couple more minutes, so I can just quickly show you some of the things that might potentially be useful. So here, can you see my screen? So for example, this is something I would recommend. You can either publish in like a long, full-length article, or publish in some of those open access journal or traditional journals. And the other way is to, if you have any software that you have developed for your research, and you simultaneously release those to the public through GitHub or other open access repositories, and this might be something you can consider. So for example, here, this is the package that I developed a couple years ago, and so I published these short articles here. I think somewhere, this one, in the journal open source software, and it's very easy for you to put together a paper. You can see here, it's actually just 1 to 2 pages. It's not very difficult, but you can certainly see it says a lot of citations just within a couple years, and it gets more citations than many of the traditional papers. And the other example would be, let me see here. I have a couple of those. The other one that was quite popular was the segment geospatial. So this one was utilizing the segment anything model, and you can do a lot of AI related segmentation from the imagery, and also publish only. Let me see here. So you can have a lot of demos, tutorials, something like that. But you can also check out the website here, and I believe there's also an article. For example, this one here. It also gets quite decent number of citations. So like I said, it's minimal effort, but you spend more time on the software development. And then if a lot of resources or students, they benefit from your research, they might cite your paper. So this is a good way that if you, a backup, if you don't have funding for paying some of those open access funds. Okay, so that's what I want to share in addition to all the resources that Olivia shared. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let me see here. There's one. Oh, Olivia already answered the questions. Thank you. All right. One last question. Anyone? I don't have any here on YouTube. Okay. If not, thank you very much for attending this workshop, and thank you, Olivia, for the great presentation. Again, you can check out the recording and also check out all those resources that we shared during this workshop. And we look forward to seeing you in, I think next week, next Monday, same time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, for open results. So I'm going to cover how you can share your source code and make your resource reproducible so other people can try out using just a browser, and you can make your resource more accessible to the public. Okay, thank you everyone. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.